Hey everyone, Brad Porter here with your weekly Sunday update. Um, I'm taking a few days for the holidays, so not in the office today, but exciting stuff going on at Cobot. Our next generation robot is really coming together, and it's quite exciting. But today I'm thinking about two concepts. Again, it's a longer weekend, a little bit more unstructured thoughts, but these are the two concepts kind of rolling around in my head. So one, I watched this video um, by Richard Feynman, right? And I was watching it because he talks about theoretical physics from a kind of play, fun, curiosity standpoint. And we're thinking a lot about that in our AI work, right? How do we bring fun? How do we bring play? What do those concepts mean when you're kind of discovering the world? But he uses the analogy of atoms, and he's kind of drawing a picture of heat transfer and things, but he describes atoms as jiggling, right? That a cup of hot water is jiggling atoms, and then the jiggling atoms in the water are jiggling up against the mug and causing the atoms in the mug to jiggle. And he talks about how when you bounce a ball on the floor, the atoms in the floor start jiggling a little bit more, right? Um, Anyhow, I was thinking about this kind of from a social context standpoint. I went to a super fun Thanksgiving party, and just the energy was really exciting, right? And I'm realizing kind of post COVID, like we're maybe finally being able to go to these kind of events and show up and have the energy kind of bounce off without that like residual kind of fear, right? And I'm thinking about this in kind of a return to office context. I'm thinking about this when it comes to conferences, when it comes to meeting with customers, when it comes to meeting with investors. Like the act of getting together, right? The act of being in the same space. For some of us who are more introverted, it sometimes isn't always, but really the ideas, the inspiration come from we call it bouncing ideas off each other, right? The And so that kind of idea of how do you bring your team together to create those ideas to encourage that kind of transfer of energy, right? And can you bring more energy into your company, into your startup, right? If you bring people into a smaller space, maybe there's more energy. We went into a much bigger space, and how are we intentional about the energy there? um, I'm also thinking about change, right? And how hard change is, right? We talk about in robotics a lot with our customers that robotics is change agent work, but what we forget sometimes is that it can be identity level work, right? I think I've shared with you all that I drive a Honda CRV, right? And that car is going to go to my daughter in a couple months. I'm thinking about a new car, and but my kids are older now, they're teenagers, like, I can probably go with something that's maybe less suburban dad practical and a little bit more sporty, a little bit more exciting, but it's kind of an identity shift, right? What do I and that is, um it slows down my decision making, right? What do I want to be? What do I want to project? What is my identity, right? And I think thinking about the same thing in robotics, right? Um, it's one thing to have an identity of we're experimental, we're innovative, we try new things. It's another thing to have an identity of um, we're robotics first in the work that we do, right? We are managing fleets of robots, and that is more of an identity level change, and it can be much scarier, right? And so how do we help customers through that? I think a lot of in our lives there are things where we know um the uh the future might be different, might be better, might be more exciting if we embrace some change, if we kind of. But I think that the trick is like a I wish for everyone kind of boldness, right? How do we how do we take the forward steps that we know are right for ourselves or for our enterprises or for and be bold, right? But also maybe how do we how do we take smaller steps toward that, right? And how do we think about, hey, this isn't, you know, just because um we started deploying robots doesn't mean we're not a people centric company or operation, right? Just because I, maybe upgrade to a sportier car doesn't mean that I'm fundamentally a different person, right? Um, but those are my thoughts, right? That I think, going into the holiday season, a lot of opportunity to interact with others, to kind of bounce off, to have ideas, and hopefully that's super energizing. And then I wish for y'all kind of boldness as we think about steps in our companies, in our lives, and in the work we do. And anyhow, hope you all have had a great long weekend. The holiday season should be terrific, and I'll keep posting